Confiscate that flute. Get him out of this ward now. Marcus Hale didn't even look, just jabbed a finger toward the thin, dark-skinned man pressed against the wall. The two security guards moved in. The old man adjusted his worn cap, clutching the cracked bamboo flute, its head tied with a frayed green string. "My name is Zeke Carter," he said softly. "I came for the child." Inside the ICU, Ava lay still among a sea of machines. Screens flickered with cold precision. The ventilator hissed in rhythm. Marcus cut him off. "This is a hospital, not a street performance." One guard reached forward. Zeke tilted his head, raising the flute to his chest as if to align his own breath with the girl's. "What exactly do you think you can do?" Marcus snapped. "Wake her voice," Zeke replied, eyes fixed on Ava. "Not with magic. With memory." Marcus gave a sharp laugh. "You really think a cracked old flute can outdo the best doctor's money can buy?" Zeke shook his head. "I think someone is still listening." Silence fell, heavy as glass. On the monitor, a faint flicker quivered and vanished. The nurse leaned in. "Could be just noise." Marcus swallowed hard. He spun on Zeke. "Leave now, or I'll call the police." Zeke stepped back without protest. His hand lingered on the bamboo, and he whispered low, just loud enough for one soul to hear, "Ava, if you still remember, hold on to the breath." Marcus turned away, but the words snagged like a thorn. At Ava's lips, a breath stretched just a fraction longer, thin as the green thread. Marcus had already burned money on everything money could touch. Private jets flying in brilliant minds, robotic therapies, VR simulations, an army of AIs mapping every fold of her MRI. Conclusion after conclusion stacked, no structural damage. Swallow reflex intact. Prognosis uncertain. Every phrase was another door slamming shut. With each one, Marcus threw more cash at the void, like incense to a cold god. That night, he sat by her bed, hand resting on the star-printed blanket. Ava hadn't sung since the accident. The silence was like a throat too afraid to cry. Marcus rasped, "She's not a machine to upgrade." His words fell to the floor like a marble rolling out of reach. Nurses rotated shifts. Dr. Sloan murmured, "We've run every protocol." In the hall, Zeke sat calmly on a metal bench, as if waiting for a bus that would never arrive. He turned the flute in his hands. The frayed string caught Marcus's eye, and for no reason he felt a flash of anger he couldn't name. He remembered that morning, the plan to drive Ava to choir practice, the urgent meeting, the phone calls stacking, a small promise swallowed by a big schedule, a mistake he'd never said aloud. When Marcus walked past, Zeke rose. "I'm not asking for money," he said, eyes still on the glass door. "Just one chance." Marcus shook his head. "What do you want from me?" "The truth," Zeke said. "The rest will follow the breath." From inside, the monitor hummed one long note before dropping. Marcus turned back, feeling as though his name had been called, though no one had spoken. The next morning, rain beaded silver on the hospital skylight. Zeke returned. A guard moved to block him, but Marcus raised a hand. "Give him 5 minutes, no more." No one believed it, least of all Marcus. But what had haunted him through the night wasn't logic. It was a silent calling. Zeke washed his hands, dried them, then stood beside the bed. He didn't play. He set the flute against his chest, eyes closed, breathing in time. "Ava," he whispered, "if you hear me, breathe deep, like when you ran through the grass." Marcus scowled. "Your minutes are ticking." Zeke opened his eyes and looked directly at him. "I know how to wake her voice, but I need something only you can give." "Money?" "No. Truth." His words landed heavy one by one. "There's a sentence she's waiting to hear from you. When she does, her breath will find the way." The sterile room magnified every sound. Marcus stood pinned. Dr. Sloan appeared in the doorway, frowning. "This isn't standard procedure." Zeke didn't break his gaze. "The standards have already failed." "And you'll replace them with what?" "Memory," Zeke said softly. "Confession." Marcus turned away. Some words had been locked too long inside his throat. To release them meant losing face, reason, control, or maybe regaining the one voice that mattered. Zeke set the flute down as though laying down a weapon. "It's not technique," he said gently. "It's the heart." Outside, the rain stopped. On the monitor, a thin line blinked, then held its breath. Marcus stood at the fault line between pride and fear. He gripped the bed rail. Zeke waited, unpressing. Only the flute lay silent on the table. One sentence. Zeke murmured. From you. Marcus stared at Ava's closed lashes. The words inside him had turned to stone. He opened his mouth, closed it again, then leaned close enough to feel her breath touch his cheek. My girl. His voice cracked. That morning I promised to take you to choir practice. I chose the meeting instead. I said, I'll make it up to you after. Then the accident happened. I should have been there. The room hushed. The machines shifted pitch like a violin tuned anew. Dr. Sloan glanced at the screen. The vocal cords flickered, uneven but alive, like a bird twitching its wings. Zeke didn't lift the flute, just nodded. Marcus forced the words out, each like a nail pried loose from his chest. I'm sorry I turned you into some upgrade project. You're not a machine. You're the only song I still know. A tear dropped onto her hand. Ava swallowed, clear and certain. The nurse gasped. It could just be reflex. Zeke said quietly, say the rest. I hid behind data because I was scared of watching you weaken. But I'm here. Right now. The signal rose a notch. Ava's lips parted, breath escaping with a tremor that almost shaped sound. Marcus staggered, half believing, half afraid to. Zeke raised the flute to his chest, not playing, only holding it like a mirror for her breath. That's enough for today, he whispered. Tomorrow, memory will lead. Outside the window, the green string quivered as if the wind had remembered the child's name. The following morning's report read, Swallow reflex, undetermined. Marcus folded it shut. He pulled his chair close, helping Ava practice. In for 4 counts, hold for 4, out for 4. Zeke watched silently from the door. Breath is the bridge, he murmured. Dr. Sloan entered, clinical as ever. Mr. Hale, improvised music therapy isn't in the protocol. We'll need consent. Marcus nodded. I'll take responsibility. He placed his hand over hers. Listen to me, slowly now. Their breaths aligned. Zeke opened the flute, let out 3 low tones, simple, for signal only. The nurse shook her head. You're imagining things. But on the monitor, the line pulsed exactly 3 times. Marcus smiled, saying nothing. His faith wasn't loud anymore. It had discipline, schedules, practice logs, a ritual. At night, they performed their small rite. Marcus retold the morning. Zeke played the 3 notes, leaving silence for Ava's breath to answer. The first time, it was only stray wind. The second, longer, lips less dry. The third, her eyes shimmered. The department head stopped by, arms folded. We'd call this an anomaly. Then let it be strange one more night, Marcus replied. The ICU corridors kept their hush. Inside, the breathing logs thickened, page by page. Ava's fingers brushed the crack in the bamboo, testing the warmth of an invisible bridge growing between her and the first song she ever sang. On the 3rd night, Zeke said, It's time for the Memory Rite. He placed the flute in his palms, turning the green string toward Ava. Give her back what she still remembers. Marcus hesitated, then pulled from his wallet a folded yellowed note. The birthday letter Ava had written her mother at 7. He always carried it, never read it aloud. The lights dimmed, the machines kept humming, but they let the room be still. Zeke blew one long, toneless breath, gathering the air into a single rhythm. Then he wove in the 3 low notes, opening space for memory to enter. Marcus leaned close, voice trembling. Mom, today I practiced You Are My Sunshine. I sang one part wrong, and Dad laughed till he fell out of the chair. I didn't mind because I knew you'd clap. His voice faltered but pressed on. Each word was a thorn pulled from his chest. On the monitor, her chords quivered steady. Dr. Sloan watched through the glass, baffled but silent. Zeke held the flute's rhythm, 3 notes, silence, then a fragile high tone like a bird testing air. I remember your hair in the rain, Marcus read, and I remember Dad promised to be at my next rehearsal. He paused, looking at her. I'm here. A soft H escaped, a spark of sound. Ava's throat jolted, then drew a deeper breath. Silence cracked. Zeke lowered the flute, whispering, the point of no return. Marcus no longer cried. He gripped her hand and, instead of begging for a miracle, kept reading. For the first time, memory didn't wound. It opened doors. And at that threshold, Ava's voice was finding its way home. At dawn, room 12B breathed like an instrument newly tuned. Marcus ticked a line in the wind journal. Inhale 4, hold 4, exhale 4. 3 cycles. Zeke stood at the foot of the bed, flute pressed to his chest like a brace for rhythm. He released only 3 low notes, leaving silence for Ava to place her breath inside. This morning, the silence wasn't empty. A faint trace appeared on the monitor, then repeated, and repeated again. Dr. Sloan yanked the curtain aside. "I have to note this. There's no medical order for what you're doing." Marcus smiled. "Write it down as breathing exercise. I'll take responsibility. You understand the legal risks. The only risk I can't stand," Marcus said, "is silence." Zeke lifted the flute's lid, holding rhythm like a man building a bridge. Ava's lips trembled less. An H brushed against an A, offbeat but purposeful. The electronic chart updated, respiratory response undetermined. By afternoon, the ethics board had convened. A young doctor objected, "If we allow this, we legitimize a street ritual as therapy." Marcus countered, "If we stop, we legitimize surrender." Zeke said nothing, his worn coat pocket hiding hands that carried more weight than words. That night, their ritual returned. Marcus told a memory, Zeke played 3 notes, Ava offered a faint syllable. The cycle repeated. Faith was no longer fire flaring and dying. It became a schedule, disciplined, pinned to the wall above her bed. Before lights out, Chief Kenner peeked in, eyeing the screen. "We'd call this an anomaly." The door shut, leaving a question dangling. If strange continues tomorrow, is it still strange? By noon the next day, sunlight broke into squares on the floor. Marcus had just closed the journal when Ava's eyes flickered open, just for a blink. Her lips quivered, shaping a sound not born of wind. "Dad," came the raspy call. The whole room froze. Marcus gripped his chair to keep from falling. Dr. Sloan rushed forward, eyes darting from monitor to the child's throat. "That could be reflex," she muttered more to herself than anyone. Marcus didn't answer. He leaned down and whispered, "I'm here." Zeke didn't play. He held the flute to his heart, listening for something the machines had no name for. Ava blinked again, voice cracking. The word broke, but the path was there. "Plays the way home." The syllables were weary stones placed carefully one by one. Dr. Sloan bent close. "What do you see?" she whispered. Ava closed her eyes, slow and steady. "The warmth of bamboo. Wind through my chest. Someone waiting on the other side." Marcus looked at Zeke. The old man gave the smallest nod, confirming what needed no explanation. The nurse checked the cameras, replayed the logs. Blank. No recorded actions. Only the fragile, steady rhythm on the monitor, as if someone had just found their way back to breathing. "This could still be coincidence," Dr. Sloan said, her voice trailing off. Marcus didn't argue. He laid his hand over his daughter's, holding still as if repeating an ancient vow. Ava's lips moved. "Don't turn. Off the music." Zeke raised the flute, breathed a note without tone, then lowered it. "No diploma needed," Ava whispered. "Only listening." The green string at the flute's head quivered, and for the first time since the accident, the doctors were silent. After Dad and the words that pointed her home, the hospital faded into the background. At the center were only 3. A father, a child, and an old man with a bamboo flute tied by a green string. They weren't chasing miracles. They were making a schedule for life. Morning, 3 breathing cycles, 3 notes. Noon, Marcus shared a memory. Waffles, an old elevator, a day he'd missed. Night, Zeke breathed a toneless wind, leaving space for Ava to answer. On the second day of this new order, Ava tried humming Ha. Short, broken, but enough to make Marcus laugh and cover his mouth. Dr. Sloan didn't retract her doubts, but she lingered longer at the doorway. Her notes shifted tone, from anomaly to progress. Marcus took charge. He shut off redundant machines, requested transfer to a regular room, and taped a poster to the wall. Ritual, tell, play, sing. The breathing journal thickened, pages worn like a private scripture. Ava began stitching her voice into small words. Home, blue, moon. When she faltered, she pressed 2 fingers together, asking to restart. Zeke shrugged at Marcus. She knows the path herself. Conflict didn't vanish. It changed form, fatigue, coughing fits, fear of relapse. Each time, Marcus chose story over panic. He read words he'd never dared before. Silence is no longer our language. Ava looked at him and slowly nodded. By week's end, they walked the corridor without machines trailing behind. Zeke followed at a distance, as if tending a garden newly sprouted. At the window, sunlight brushed the green string with gold. Back in bed, Ava tapped the flute's head and, with mischief, blew 3 notes. Saturday morning, Zeke returned unannounced, standing in the doorway, coat frayed, flute in hand. Ava half sat up, as if afraid he'd vanish. "Today," he said gently, "is the day of passing on." He laid the flute in Ava's hands, aligning it properly. "You already know the 3 notes. From now on, you set the rhythm yourself." "Stay, won't you?" she pleaded. "I'll stay in the silence." Zeke smiled. Marcus hesitated. "I'm not sure I'm ready." "No one's ever ready for growth," Zeke replied. "But now it's hers." He gave final instruction. "Inhale 4, hold 4, exhale 4, 3 low notes. Leave space for the heart to continue." Then he stepped back, folding his hands as if returning authority. Ava raised the flute. The first breath wavered, then 3 notes landed, small but steady. She tested a higher pitch, slipped, corrected, and grinned at her own doorway opening. Marcus laughed, trying not to break the rhythm. Zeke tilted his head, watching the green string tremble lightly, as if someone whispered, "Well done." "Will you come back?" Ava asked. "Only if you lose the way," Zeke said, "but I think you've already learned it." He placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder, not as a blessing, but as a reminder the father was the conductor now. Then he turned to leave. Sunlight spilled across Ava's hand, clutching the flute. In the hallway, Chief Kenner murmured, "What are we watching here?" Dr. Sloan answered, eyes fixed on the monitor. "A transfer of power." Inside, Ava strung together the first 4 notes of her new life. News spread. Girl regains her voice through bamboo flute. Reporters gathered in the lobby. Marcus asked for a small conference room. He didn't present a case study. He told a story, ending with words scrawled across a whiteboard. "Where silence ends, healing begins." Weeks later, a wooden sign hung over a repurposed warehouse. "Where silence ends." No expensive machines, only yoga mats, old instruments, folding chairs, and free breathing journals. Children who'd survived hardship came to do 3 things: tell, play, and sing. Marcus taught breath storytelling. Dr. Sloan sat in quiet, jotting notes instead of objections. Ava was both first student and junior instructor. She tied the green string around her wrist and handed the flute to a nervous girl afraid to speak in public. "Just 3 notes first," Ava said. "Leave space for your heart." The girl faltered. The class laughed, then hushed when Marcus raised a hand. "Here," he said, "we don't measure by numbers. We count by courage." A group of doctors requested the files, proposing a case report. Marcus didn't resist, but refused to turn the class into an experiment. "You can tell your story," he smiled. "We'll tell ours." At the opening, Ava stood on a low platform, played 4 notes, then sang a thin line. Paper fragile but true. No pop hit, no grand flourish. Just a child's voice finding its way home. The room held its breath. When the final note fell, everyone understood the most important thing had happened. They were listening. By fall, a mural bloomed on the warehouse wall. A small hand holding a bamboo flute tied with green string. Below it, scrawled in childish letters, "Where silence ends." Each evening, passers-by stopped, learned 3 notes, and left to silence for their own hearts to speak. Ava's story traveled. Small classes sprouted everywhere. Online, people tagged "Yashak 3 notes." The videos weren't polished, just breath in rhythm. A girl in New Mexico missed a note and laughed. A boy in Detroit tied his shoelace as a green string. The hospital hosted grand rounds on Ava's case. EEG charts, EMG graphs, the word anomaly filling slides. During Q&A, Dr. Sloan said, "I can't explain it in any model, I only know that day." All of us finally stayed silent long enough to listen. The room went still, not for lack of questions, but because the story had changed hands, from theory to memory. One evening, Marcus taped a flyer for volunteers. Ava braided green threads, handing them out to kids as passwords. At the courtyard edge, a homeless old man lingered at the mural. Marcus caught a familiar silhouette. "Zeke?" No reply. Only 3 notes drifting from an alley, fading away. That night, Ava stood before the group, looking at her father and the children. She spoke clearly. "He didn't heal anyone, he reminded us." Then she played 4 notes to open. This time, no one needed to be astonished. Even the doctors sat among the crowd, learning to blow for the first time. And at the far end of the room, silence itself had taken shape. That shape was a voice. Rediscovered.